As camera technology gets better and better, the differences between our new cameras seems to get smaller and smaller. However, every so often a camera comes along that does buck that trend and raises the bar for all other manufacturers. For us, in 2019, that camera was the Panasonic S1H. And I'll be honest, I was very skeptical of this camera at first. With its mirrorless hybrid form factor and its hefty price tag, I thought it was just going to be an expensive upgrade to the GH5, and very quickly I was proved very wrong. Now, after a month of having the camera and sadly having to send it back to Panasonic, now our review has finished, I wanted to revisit my initial thoughts to give you a rundown of what I truly think about this camera now I've had all that time to use it, its drawbacks, and also why I think the Panasonic Lumix S1H will change the game for good. But firstly, those drawbacks, and yes, like any camera, it does actually have some. The time we learnt the most about this camera was when we took it out of the studio and on location, shooting for our most recent short film, which is linked below. And like any camera, in the field is where it shows its true colours. Firstly, the autofocus, and it is as bad as they say. The DFD autofocus system is slow. It's really slow, and it also likes to do a lot of wandering in and out of focus during recording. I'm hopeful this will get addressed in a future firmware update, but I'm not entirely convinced as the DFD autofocus system seems maybe beyond help. For us, this isn't really a huge issue, as with it we tend to shoot in manual pretty much all of the time, but for the more casual content creator, this is certainly going to be a hurdle that they're going to have to overcome. I did find the camera a little cumbersome to use, especially when any shots were rushed or time sensitive. The menu is huge, but it does need to be, as this camera can do so much. But in all honesty, that large menu did create a hurdle to shooting. I'm pretty sure that this may just be a learning curve thing, and more time with the camera will make it even easier to use, but in that short 1 month period that we had it, it was an issue for us every time. And finally, it is a data hungry monster. Now this cannot be understated. The 4K files are huge at 400 megabits per second. Firstly, you will need to get the faster UHS-2 SD cards to get the best out of this camera, and they are uber pricey. That in itself isn't an issue, but that 400 megabits per second 4K bit depth will eat up hard drive space and processing power in editing. You'll probably have to work with proxies all the time, and you'll definitely have to heavily invest in storage space if you're planning on filming with this camera in the long term. Now onto the positives, and really I could just go on and write a 15-minute love letter to Panasonic about the S1H, as in all honesty, that's how I truly feel about it. The versatility of all the frame sizes and rate options is insane. Now I normally struggle to justify anything bigger than a 4K frame, but the S1H has actually opened my eyes to the potential of 6 and 5.9K shooting. And interestingly, despite that huge frame, it really maintains its detail and sharpness in the image it's rendered at that 5.9K frame size. The great thing about that 6K shooting is also in the H.265 codec, which is actually a really efficient way for capturing footage. The 422 10-bit 4K still leaves me breathless. It is just gorgeous and more than justifies that price tag and hard drive space it takes up. And whilst I'm talking about the price, it's also worth mentioning the value that this camera actually represents. For sure, $3.5 grand is a huge amount of money, but you do have to consider that you're getting a miniaturized professional production camera here that will likely last you for years, both in terms of the build quality and the technology inside of it. Pound for pound, this may well be the best value investment you could make in a camera that has come out in 2019. It is certainly one of the few that will truly represent the money that you sink into it. And one area that still really impresses me with the S1H is its low light performance. Now obviously on paper, that's pretty obvious as it is a full frame camera that uses a dual native ISO system, but even those specs cannot prepare you for how good it actually is in those low light and challenging conditions. It renders a really clean, detailed and noise-free image even at higher ISOs. A camera, in truth, is just a tool for filmmaking, and more often than not, they're all pretty much the same. However, the S1H is the kind of tool that's so exciting to use and create with that it actually inspires you to film. It raises the bar as to what's possible and really encourages you to try new things as a filmmaker, or at very least inspires you to go out and film just for the love of it. And really, I can think of no higher praise for a camera than that. So for some more information on this camera, there's some links below. And whilst you're down there, why not consider subscribing to the channel or even signing up to our Filmmakers Club on Patreon. That's been my grab and go review of the Panasonic Lumix S1H 1 month on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.